1 in 5 Americans suffer from chronic pain. Many are now using CBD for relief.
Activists are hoping pot could be legalized nationwide by the end of 2019.
When you look at premium cannabis, the Illinois House approved legalizing recreational marijuana.
Welcome to The Budding Report, a weekly show centered around all things cannabis. Please join us in welcoming our host, Charles Horton, and his co-host, Melissa Nasits, as they share the latest in cannabis news, conduct interviews with top leaders in the cannabis space, and promote some of the latest in science and innovation. And now to our host, Charles Horton.
Well, welcome to the Budding Report. I'm Melissa Nasits, and I am all by myself today. Charles is in Hawaii. He's enjoying some scuba diving and snorkeling today, so unfortunately he will not be joining us remotely, but don't feel too bad for him because I think he's got it better than all of us. But I'd like to welcome our co-hosts, Christian and Chris, Dr. Shah, Chris Perri. They are joining us from Austin. And are you in Arizona now, Dr. Shah?
Yep, back in Phoenix, enjoying it. It's probably a bit cooler than you're talking about earlier on the show. It's 70s. We're a bit cloudy with some rain, but it's nice.
That's about what we have here. So we're very excited for today's show. We've got a couple of amazing ladies joining us today. We've got Debbie Churgai, Executive Director of Americans for Safe Access, as well as Shanel Lindsay, who is CDO of Ardent Cannabis. But first of all, I want to get into our news article. So I'm going to hand it over to Chris, who kind of does our news to speak, especially this one. We're going to talk a little bit about cannabis stocks and whether or not they're going to have their own GameStop moment. So what do you have to say about this?
Yeah, absolutely, Melissa. Thank you so much. Well, the big news, I mean, obviously we're going to be aired next week on the 10th, but the big news coming up the week that we were airing was the GameStop moment on the stock market, where, in case you're not familiar, what basically happened was there's a lot of hedge funders out there, people that make their living in the stock market, and they did something called short selling of stocks that they felt like were going to go down because with the pandemic, people just aren't going to standalone video game stores like GameStop or movie theaters like AMC. So what ended up happening was like a backlash of people are calling it like a populist backlash. I don't know if I'd call it that populist, actually, because the person engineering it is his own hedge fund manager trying to screw other hedge fund managers. But they basically said, we're going to all go out and buy GameStop, and then it'll cause more people to buy it. All these people that had sold it short will get squeezed. The price will go up and up and up. And it just doesn't make much sense, though, because GameStop itself is not actually have any of those fundamentals you would look for when looking for a good stock. So what we're talking about this week is whether the rise in cannabis stocks could be something like GameStop, where it's just propped up based on expectations, not based on real fundamentals. Obviously, the stock market was invented or put there because it's a way of allocating money in the most efficient way. And I will say it has been taken advantage of by hedge funds and people trying to manipulate the markets in recent years, causing these wild fluctuations. I don't think that necessarily means you need regulation. I think it just means that people buying stocks need to make sure they're looking at the fundamentals of these cannabis companies. I've had a portfolio of like 12 stocks, cannabis stocks, since November. Did a lot of research with my investment savvy brother on it, and they've all gone up about 30 or 40%. That's not because of some GameStop moment. That's not because people are going out there and manipulating stocks. These are good stocks with earnings potential. Every stock we have has some type of pathway that it's trying to go in terms of where these companies are going, and they have earnings reports that back them up. So I would say, people out there, do your own research, find cannabis companies that you're confident in, that you feel like have good business plans, that fit your future expectations, and then that is a stock that you should buy and hold. Buy and hold is the way you should handle the stock market, and then you'll avoid these crazy fluctuations and bankruptcies like people that were shorting GameStop, or the people that held on to GameStop too long, because it's gone from 350 to 90 now. So it really wasn't a good thing to be holding on to, whereas I believe cannabis stocks are good to hold on to, and I think it's a good investment.
Yeah, I think with the GameStop, it's an empty stock. And I think we've realized that. I do think that a big portion of the reasons why we're seeing an increase in cannabis is with the new change in government. Having Biden in control at the helm, by having a 50-50 split in Congress with Harris as the deciding vote, I think that we're going to probably see a further push towards legalization. So it seems like those stock investments would be wise to make at this time and just hold on to them.
Absolutely, Melissa, and you make a really good point about news. News often drives stock buying and stock increasing. So, for example, Georgia runoffs go Democratic, you see a huge surge in cannabis stocks the next day. A lot of that, it has to do with expectations of people, and some of that may not be completely real. And I do think people need to temper their expectations a bit. For example, just because the government legalizes marijuana federally doesn't mean that it's legal in every state, for example. So it's not just a sudden free-for-all. So people need to make sure they're aware of these things and these facts and these situations before they just say, oh my God, marijuana's about to be legal, let's put our entire investment portfolio in it, because that's probably not the way to do it either. But I would say that it is a good stock. There is great news coming out. There is going to be more legality going on, but it might be a little more gradual than just some sudden boom, it's legal in all 50 states, because that's not what's going to happen overnight.
I completely agree. And just as a reminder, you can always go back and visit on our website at thebuddingreport.com and look up some of the previous guests we've had. We've had some amazing investment professionals on, give us some insights into investing. And at this point, when it does look to be like a prime time, it might be worth a while to check out. So check us out on thebuddingreport.com. You can always speak to any of our previous guests as well as upcoming guests or guests like today. We're going to go off to a brief commercial break. And in just a moment, we'll be right next up with Debbie Churgai.
Hello, hello, coming to you from the outdoors where I do my heat training, and I did my repeats on the hills. It's actually pretty empty, but it's kind of close to 90 degrees. So that's when I squeeze in whatever I can, but I'm actually here to share what Simply Start, Simply Satisfy is. So this organic hemp oil, this is the serum Simply Start, and you can take it twice a day or once. I already took both of them in this morning, so now it's lunchtime. Real quick and easy, yummy, delicious, 30 calories. The other one is Simply Satisfy. So it's a spray and also 3 sprays. You could do it once a day or twice a day. Again, I did it this morning. I'm doing it now at lunch. It helps you take care of your health and wellness. So learn more about them. Remember, 3 simple changes on how you can incorporate into your life. You can learn more at the link below. So stay safe and keep moving, keep training, and take care of your spirit, mind, and body.
And we're back. So now we have Debbie Churgai. She's the Executive Director of American for Safe Access. She oversees all organizational and program operations in regards to education, training, policy, research, product safety, and any business compliance. She's a writer for ASA Publications and has previous work in behavioral and public health fields and a master's degree in psychology. So we're very excited to have you. And what a pedigree, my goodness. So, well, I have to find a little bit more about you as we go through this, but just to kind of kick things off, what really differentiates the ASA from other programs, similar advocacy groups and trade associations?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So Americans for Safe Access is a national nonprofit patient advocacy group for medical cannabis. So our focus is really on patients. Patients are our priority. So everything that we look at, we try to look at from a patient perspective. So for instance, while 47 states currently have some form of a medical cannabis program, we know that there's still lack of access for millions of patients, even within those states. For instance, some states have low, just only CBD or low THC. Some states have condition-specific lists that you have to have a specific condition to have access. There's affordability issues. And so there's a lot of other aspects besides the law. And making sure that the industry is remains profitable as well.
Well, that's very interesting. We started to lose a little bit of your audio, just cutting in just a little bit, but it was starting to come back. So I just want to make sure we're not missing any of it. I know Christian's going to have a ton of questions. This is right up his alley, more so than mine. What have you got, Christian?
Well, I mean, I'll just start with asking you what do you believe the most difficult part is working in the medical cannabis advocacy field, especially from the perspective of patient advocacy?
Yeah, I think a lot of people that work in the cannabis space, or people seem to think it's sexy, it's exciting, and it is in many aspects. It is, but I work with patients who are sick, who are dying, who are looking for relief, not pleasure, and so I see a different aspect of the cannabis industry that most people do. Most people get to enjoy the patients coming into their dispensary and seeing the access that they're giving them. They get to produce the medicine. They get to help patients. Where we get calls every week from people who still don't have access, who are struggling to afford their medicine, who need to move their families to a different state just to even obtain the medicine. So I see a different area of the cannabis space than most people do. And I see that lack of access that is still there. And, it's hard. It's a hard job to have because I'm reminded daily that this medicine is still not universally available to everyone in this country. And that's what we want to focus on. We want to make this medicine not just available for those that can afford it, but for everyone that can utilize this medicine.
So Debbie, speaking of these priorities and what you're trying to do with ASA, what are they going to be for 2021 in particular?
So when COVID first hit our nation, one of the first things we did was we sent a letter to every single governor and every single regulator in the country and asked them for several provisions. One was to maintain cannabis businesses as essential, to keep them open. We also asked for delivery because delivery is not available in every state, telehealth options, and extensions on their marijuana cards. So for 2021, right now, we're currently about to send a letter again to every single governor and regulator asking them to keep these temporary regulations permanent because we've always needed these. Telehealth is an amazing help for patients, that can't leave their homes. This is why we have so many caregivers, because a lot of patients actually can't drive to dispensaries, so they need caregivers to purchase their medicine if the delivery isn't available. Telehealth is also has always been needed. So we want to start off 2021 by asking legislators and regulators to continue these temporary measures, make them permanent, because cannabis, as they all said, cannabis is essential. So we need to keep these temporary regulations going on. Along with this, we're super excited about the Biden-Harris administration, but we're cautiously optimistic because we know that even when Trump came into presidency, a lot of people thought that legalization was right around the corner. Once again, a lot of people think that legalization is right around the corner. I think that it's going to take a lot of time for that to happen. And so we're pushing for federal oversight of the Office of Medical Cannabis Control because we really feel that it's time that the government stepped up and made cannabis legal for everyone in this country equally so that they can travel across state lines, they can work in a different state and still medicate. And so we're really going to be pushing for that.
You talk about the legalization, but we have already, so many adult use laws available, in multiple states. So do you see that medical programs becoming obsolete or not, that they're no longer needed?
No, absolutely not. And I think what people need to understand that there is a difference between the medical program and adult use. For instance, adult use, does not include children or anyone under 21. There are hundreds of thousands of pediatric patients in this country that either utilize cannabis or that can utilize cannabis if we got more education to the doctors. But yeah, so I think patients also have different needs. Patients need medicine. Some patients need medicine every day. Some patients need medicine every day for the rest of their lives. So we need to make sure that patient access is a priority, and we've unfortunately already seen it in states right now where adult use laws come in, and suddenly everyone leaves the medical program, and that's because medical programs, you have to get a doctor recommendation, you have to pay for a medical marijuana card. So already right there, those are two costs that are higher than the adult use market. But we want patients to talk to their doctors. We want them to, show their doctors how cannabis is helping them. So I think that the medical side is really important. Plus, we have patient protections that we need to cover. So while the adult use is coming into these states, there's still so many issues in the medical program that needs to be fixed.
I certainly agree with you. And the question that I would next ask is based on your agency's work at a national level, can you identify those states that are probably most progressive in accepting and intelligently moving forward with legalization versus those at the other spectrum that are completely dragging their feet towards this effort?
Well, Georgia has been dragging its feet for a long time. South Carolina, and then the two states that don't have any access right now. So I think that some states that are doing it well are Massachusetts, Illinois. But I have to tell you, we do this report every year. It's called the State of States Report, where we do a national perspective of the medical cannabis program, of how they're best serving the needs for patients. And right now, no one has an A. So we grade every single state from A to F, how they're best serving patient needs. States are still failing them. They're still failing the patients, whether it's testing requirements, condition lists, lack of access to certain parts of the state. So even the states that really look good, that really had high grades, we receive complaints from patients because they think that their state isn't doing enough for the patients.
Well, I can't thank you enough for joining us today, Debbie. And, I think back, it was over 20 years ago, I was in the entertainment industry, and a very dear friend of mine was suffering during the beginning of the AIDS epidemic. And he was on hospice, unable to eat, and trying desperately to get cannabis just so that he could treat himself. And it was horrible to see what he had to go through to try and do something, basically break the law, to give him some comfort. So what you're doing is amazing, and working with people and trying to care for them. So thank you again, and we appreciate, again, you can always contact Debbie directly at our website, and we appreciate her coming on and sharing some of her information. We will be right back after a brief short message with our next guest.
Coming to you after our hike that we finished. Buster exercises 3 miles. Today is a recovery day because he did 8-mile hike over the weekend, broken up into 2. But what I want to share with you is this company here called Simple Changes. I learned about them and I absolutely love the concept. It's wellness, community, and organization. So as you can see here, I love the wrapping. I love purple, and it comes with 3 products. So I've been trying them out. First, it's the hemp oil spray. Then it's the hemp oil dropper and the hemp oil ball. So I'll be trying all of these out. I've been exploring them, exploring ingredients. I met with the team on Zoom. Really neat product. And I love the fact that they also want to incorporate healthy practices. So they come with a little journal and something about Simple Success Guide. So, Simple Changes. You're so entertained, huh? Papa. Hey, ready? Papa.
Well, thank you for sticking with us. We have Shanel Lindsay, CEO and founder of Ardent, in with us next. She is an attorney, another attorney on the show today, a cannabis activist, a prominent voice for equity in the industry, and author of Massachusetts Marijuana Legalization Initiative, co-founder of the Equitable Opportunities Now, EON. So, again, another wonderful profile here. We're so excited to have you on. Tell us a little bit about your story and how you founded this company.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Melissa. Thanks for having me here. So I'm based in Boston, and I am turning 40 this year, but 20 years ago, when I was just a young mother, I started using cannabis as a medicine. I had an ovarian cyst, and I wanted to use some more natural remedies rather than prescription meds. And so for me, that journey was one of research and understanding, and really centered on trying to make the best medicine for myself. And back then there was no medical program and there was no access. And so I was really kind of on my own to make suppositories and edibles and topicals that would help my condition. And honestly, it was really difficult. It was a really smelly process. It was a expensive process because I was using a lot of material, and I think a lot of patients, can resonate with that even still. And so about 10 years later, I kind of became an attorney and had a traditional legal career. But when medical marijuana came to Massachusetts, I realized that there were all of these people that were starting and really interested in making cannabis products for themselves, but they had no idea how to approach the subject. And by that time, I was already making and testing my medicine in a laboratory here in Mass, and really seeing how decarboxylation, which is the central process for activating THC or CBD that's in the raw flower to actually get an active bioavailable THC or CBD, that it was really hard to achieve this in the oven. And, even me, after being an expert at that point for over 10 years, I was still wasting 30 or 40% just because there was no real, reliable way to do it. And so at that point, I kind of had an aha moment of, if this process could be better, if it could be easier, if people could get, twice as much out of their plant material, that could streamline things for a lot of people. Because I knew for me, I was somebody who had always really loved the plant. And I loved doing experiments around it and making it. But I saw people like my grandmother or my aunt that would want to do this and that would never, take that time and effort or be able to do that in their apartment where it might smell. And so we've been here at Ardent for 6 years now, making not only kind of the appliances, so the tabletop units that people use to make any cannabis product they can think of, but also accessories and kits and education to really bring home and make it really simple for people, wherever they are. Like Debbie mentioned, there are a lot of people that are brand new to cannabis that have never heard about this before, or have difficulty accessing products, or just don't have all the money to kind of spend at a dispensary, because it does get very, very expensive for people, especially as they're treating really serious conditions.
So we're told that Ardent actually has a product called Easy Bake Oven. Can you give us some more information on that? What led you to create it?
Yes, so this is our first flagship device, which is a small tabletop unit. And this was our device for the last 4 years, and it decarbs about an ounce at a time. And the entire time people were asking us, when are you going to make a bigger unit? A lot of people are caregiving and they are making products for their family and their friends. And so the second version of the device is this larger device, and we call it the Easy Bake Ardent because it not only decarbs THC and CBD, but it also cooks little edibles and snacks inside. And so the whole idea is that people don't have to have an oven and don't have to have a kitchen in order to make cannabis products.
Wow. I need one of those.
So speaking of these devices, can you tell me about another device that Ardent's making? How is your new device going to be different from the Nova decarboxylator and infuser?
Yeah, so this device actually decarbs up to 1/4 pound at a time. But there's no minimum amount either. So actually I decarbed some flour right here before we got on, and this is about 1/2 gram. So in this flour, there's about 100 milligrams of THC. So just in this tiny bit of flower. And so people can understand that they can actually make products with very, very little material, which is really important to people as they're trying to, stretch their material. We definitely saw that during quarantine, as that, people had a renewed interest in how to make their own and how to, save money along the way. The FX, like I mentioned, or that it's this easy bake oven concept, is you can actually kind of cook little cakes and snacks inside. So these are some little apple pies that I have going in here. So after people activate their material inside, and that's whether it's keef or concentrate or flour, really any starting material, you can activate inside here. You can also infuse inside the device as well. So you can see here, there's a couple of different settings for activating THC and CBD, also infusing, and then also baking. So it really is a device that does it all. And it looks really simple on the outside, but really what's happening here is there's a thermal blanket. So there's a heater that wraps around the entire cavity. And that's really what makes it different than an oven or a toaster oven, where you're getting the heat on the top and the bottom, and you're having uneven spots. There's a thermal blanket here and also double sensors. And there's an algorithm that's really taking it to the exact right temperatures for the exact right amount of time, and really managing for what's inside the device rather than just putting it to like one single, heat setting. And that was in conjunction with MCR Labs here in Massachusetts that we worked to, develop the right time and temperature sequences based on the science. And that's one thing Ardent is really passionate about, is bringing the science to the patient or the recreational, adult user, to really streamline and take the mystery out of cannabis, because I think that's a big part of removing the stigma, around this awesome product.
Well, I have to say, that's a lot fancier than the Easy Bake Oven I was making brownies out of when I was 12 years old. But a lot more fun, I think, too, to be honest. I heard that you had some new accessories available.
Yeah, so one of the things that is really difficult for people is when they're taking that next step after activating and then moving on to infusing. And first off, just people should know that like once they activate the material, it's ready to eat right now. A lot of people just take a little bit of bud and sprinkle it right into their food. If you want to have a better bioavailable effect, you can add lecithin or take lipase or other things like that. But people don't actually need to infuse into a butter and oil. It's something that is, pretty traditional, but not necessary. A lot of people grind it and put it in capsules as well. But people that do want to infuse, one of the most difficult parts of it is actually straining the cannabis afterwards. And so we developed this really cool little French press that after you decarb and after you put your oil in there, that you can easily go and press it down and pour it out and really get a nice clean oil without ever having to, touch the end product there, and just make it simpler for people and really kind of meet people where they are. A lot of people are used to using, kitchen appliances, and we can make it a lot easier for them to explore different kinds of products. What we found is that people, even if they're used to only eating edibles or other things like that, when they know how much they can make for very little, they actually start experimenting and making things like suppositories or topicals, and starting to really see how cannabis can take over some of these over-the-counter products that they've been using in the past and probably paying a lot more money for.
Wow. Well, thank you again, Shanel. Honestly, I think I have more questions than when I started, and I'm sure a lot of our watchers do as well. So please make sure that you reach out to Shanel. You can always contact her through our website at thebuddingreport.com. That's why we have our guests on here, is to connect people together. So thank you again, Shanel. It's an amazing product. And thank you, Debbie, for all your hard work that you're doing for everyone in the cannabis world and who needs the product for health and wellness. Join us next week. Our guests are going to include Leslie Boscore of Indoor Harvest Group and Dr. Rob Streisfeld. We thank you again for joining us. I look forward to coming back next week when we have Charles back in the studio, and I won't be quite so lonely. Thanks again to Dr. Shaw and Chris Perri as well. You all have a wonderful week. We'll see you again soon.